Today we gotta talk about this headline here, because I know this has been a super hot topic. People are getting nervous, and rightfully so, but this survey doesn't include just jobs, it covers a variety of topics. We got jobs, deepfakes, military applications, romantic bots. Yes, I don't know what that one's about. We'll get to all this. And just a disclaimer, it was a survey conducted online with 4,446 US adults. Take that as you will. Is that reflective of the overall population? That's up to you to decide. And I also want to hear what you think about each of these topics. So let's go. First, and probably most importantly, it's jobs, the thing that makes us money and allows us to live life on a daily basis. 71% of the surveyed population is concerned about permanent job replacement. Now, this is kind of weird because unemployment is sitting at historically low levels, around 4.2%. So what's going on here? And another thing that's a little weird is jobs data that we talked about in a prior video has been coming in weak, much weaker than expected, revising down the previous months by some 250,000 odd jobs, and a lot of those jobs in social services and healthcare. But then on the flip side, we have the labor force participation rate clearly trending down with time, and recently we see a big spike down. So what's going on here? Well, I'm going to be honest, it's kind of a wild goose chase to try to figure out how each of these things are defined, but we're going to give it our best shot here. So the labor force participation rate is defined by the labor force, which are people that are employed or unemployed but actively seeking work, over the working age population, which is pretty simple, right? Just the total amount of people over 16 years old. So for all intents and purposes, this thing right here can't really change, right? However, this one, we have this kind of subjective line, actively seeking work, which implies a person is taking some steps to find a job, right? Applying for apps, attending interviews, contacting potential employers. All that stuff is very hard to measure. So if the unemployment rate is staying relatively consistent, as we see here at 4.2, but then the labor force participation rate is going down, and we can't change this number is going down. The labor force, which again isn't employed people because as we saw, it sits at 4.2%, but it's this category, unemployed but actively seeking work. Another thing to note is the 27 weeks unemployed number is also skyrocketing. So the amount of people that have been out of work for a decently long time, about half a year. I mean, at least the temporary conclusion just seems to be that people are giving up on trying to find a job. Now, is that purely because of AI? There's probably other factors that play into it as well, like the recent crackdown on immigration laws in the United States. So those people are probably more likely to stay away from getting any sort of job, risking their citizenship in the United States. But if we get to the AI portion, just stay in that realm. It's clear that the jobs that we're concerned with losing, so think cashier, driver, translator, stocking, customer service. I mean, these are all jobs that for the most part, don't require a whole lot of human touch. Really, they're more monotonous than anything. And it's good to have jobs for people, allowing people to make money, especially when they're younger, right? You don't always have the greatest skill set when you're young in high school and in college. You don't really have a lot of things you can do other than some of these. But at the end of the day, we probably do want to replace a lot of these jobs and allow AI to do the things that it's best at. Extremely monotonous tasking that nobody really wants to do for the rest of their life, but has to do to make money. This does lend itself to the idea of focusing on innovation and that human touch. So think your jobs like engineers, leaders, financial services, jobs that use a lot of intelligence and a lot of communication from person to person. AI should really just be a tool for those people, not replace. I saw some stat the other day talking about how this is one of the hardest job markets that new grads have ever faced, even in these fields, technology and STEM related, which yes, is that worrisome? Absolutely, because that would actually deter potential prospects in these fields from enrolling in university and pursuing something like that, right? Young people are impressionable, and if they see that others are struggling to get jobs in these more innovative fields, then it's gonna be problematic. Anyways, we could talk about jobs all day long. I've done that a few times already. Let's get to the next one. Manipulation. Here you can see former President Obama behind bars in prison. This isn't real. This is what's known as a deepfake. 77% of those surveyed are concerned about spiraling manipulation and chaos caused by these deepfakes. Trump recently posted a deepfake of Obama being arrested in the White House and being thrown into prison, saying nobody is above the law. We don't have to get into that. That's too political, but it's just ridiculous. The amount of deepfake incidents is absolutely skyrocketing. The total in 2025, quarter one, the first 3 months, surpassed all of 2024 combined, and this trend is not going away, right? Now, most of the targets are on people of influence, so think your celebrities, think your politicians. That should be for obvious reasons, right? If you target people with more influence, you might be able to manipulate outcomes of events or persuade impressionable and gullible people to do things that they normally wouldn't do. I'm sure we could all imagine a scenario where, let's say there's an election in the United States, which is a democracy, which means the people vote for the leaders of their country, being influenced by some non-domestically produced deepfakes that throw slander at some of the potential candidates and hence influence their decision to vote and potentially tip the scales in either direction. I'm sure we could all imagine a scenario like that. You can see deepfake growth in these different countries during an election year has absolutely skyrocketed, and the quality's definitely getting better and better. It's certainly not perfect. There are still some telltale signs, but hopefully the deepfake detection market, which is also growing massively, will continue to produce technologies that reduce this risk. There's a lot of doofuses out there that will believe pretty much anything social media throws at them, so yeah, that's a pretty big problem. Next on the list, we got military application. 48% opposed, 24% support in AI determining military strike targets. Now, this is a little misleading. I actually don't like the terminology of determining military strike targets because that's not the issue. I work in the defense industry, and determining military strike targets is not the problem we need to be concerned about with AI. It's automatic deployment and engagement of targets. That's where things get really dicey and it becomes a slippery slope. So the best example of AI and military application right now is definitely Anduril, founded by Palmer Luckey right here. The dude's got meta glasses reading a script to an audience full of people, long hair, almost mullet-like, a Hawaiian shirt, flip-flops, and shorts, standing in front of and talking about a killer drone right here. A drone capable of lethal strikes. What a strange world we live in. Again, I think a lot of this is overhyped by social media. People think that, we're gonna create some sort of AGI singularity of super killer robots as Skynet was in the Terminator series. That's very far out of reach right now. So Anduril, the creator of this killer drone, created by this guy right here in his Hawaiian shirt and flip-flops, has some pretty cool capability. We can operate at subsonic speeds, can take off vertically and land vertically. But the key is it requires a human operator to make decisions on the use of deadly or lethal force. Now, I know you can't see this down here, but this is the important line. Right now, the human operator is in the loop on this decision making. But as I talked about briefly, the actual automation of deployment and engagement of a target, that's where things get dicey. Again, we can definitely use AI for identifying and classifying threats. That makes a lot of sense, and that's what AI is really good at. But humans need to be able to take accountability for the things that they're killing, right? I don't think it's a great step if we start blaming robots for taking control of situations and making decisions that we wouldn't agree with. So that's where things get a little dicey here. So again, recap: detection, designation of targets through some sort of laser designation system, surveillance, autonomous flight, recon, all these things make sense, but maybe not deployment of lethal weaponry or engagement right now. Let's probably stay away from that. Energy use, 61% concerned about electricity demands by AI, and rightfully so. I go into this in a whole bunch of detail in the last video I released. I'm not going to talk about this too much right now, but make no mistake about it, the amount of energy that we need to fuel AI's ridiculous, insatiating demand is going up and going up fast. Again, check that video if you want to learn more about it. All right, social impacts. I honestly, I thought this was kind of a joke. I didn't even know this was a thing. 66% of those surveyed are concerned about AI relationships. And I found this headline here: 1 in 5 young people open to AI virtual. What are we talking about here, guys? Are we really looking into having romantic partners as AI? I'm not sure I get this one. Please let me know in the comments if you have an AI boyfriend or girlfriend. I'd love to hear about how you met and your story and your dates and whatnot. But what I do understand is this recent uproar from GPT-4 and GPT-5. I'm not saying it makes complete sense, but what we do understand about human psychology is people like to get glazed. People like to be complimented. It makes them feel good. GPT-4 was much warmer, was much kinder. And GPT-5 is certainly less like that, certainly more to the point and objective. So it's definitely a little bit of a loss of social fulfillment, I guess. People feeling like they have a companion, like a human assistant, right? Again, I'm not sure how many people actually looked for this sort of fulfillment, but it certainly was there before, and now less so. Let me know what you think. Do you care about getting social fulfillment, or you just go on there to get the facts and get the answers and get out? Human psychology says we like to get glazed, and that's just how it's gonna be. And I think other than jobs, this one is probably the most critical and most crippling if things go wrong. 36 believe AI will improve learning, while 40% disagree. I think the most objective way we can look if it's actually helping right now is by looking at standardized test scores. And we can see right here, this is ACT, this is SAT, both internationally recognized standardized tests designed to test a wide range of student abilities, from critical thinking to reading and writing to different disciplines like math and science. And we can see right here, there is a clear decline of scoring amongst both tests. We have the ACT literally declining year after year up until 2023. I didn't find the 2024, 2025 data. And then we also have the SAT scores clearly declining as well. Now, obviously, there's a ton of factors that could go into this. We definitely can't make any clear and obvious conclusions, but I would venture to say that students using artificial intelligence to get them through, let's say, math class, science class, reading and writing assignments on a daily basis will probably deteriorate their ability to come up with things and come up with critical thinking skills on their own. And again, classes aren't meant for you to just look things up and put in answers. They're designed to teach you the ability to do something so that when the time comes to do it, you have the ability to think and do it. So I think in summary, what we're referring to, right, is the skill of critical thinking. Now, as you could imagine, critical thinking has a lot of correlation to success. Successful people rely on these skills the most. And again, this isn't perfectly objective, but I think it's a good way to look at, hey, what are employers looking for? And if employers are looking for these skills, then they're probably some of the more important skills to have. Now you can see critical thinking, one down here we obviously just talked about, but most of these don't have anything to do with your intelligence, your ability to communicate effectively and clearly, your ability to stay organized, be a part of a team, on time, social skills. These aren't technical skills, these are soft skills. But I think it's important to realize that in the primary educational system, these are the skills that are probably the most important to become successful in life. It doesn't necessarily have to do with your intelligence, it has to do with being able to communicate with people and clearly understand problems and needs, and therefore you can solve those problems and needs with skills that you learn over time, with hard skills. Coding, mathematics, marketing, whatever those skills are, you can learn those skills on a course online by yourself. But communication, you have to talk to people, you have to present to people, you have to build relationships and create trust between people and customers and business. So I think if there's anything to be concerned about with education, it's probably this chart. And it's really that like foundational impact on primary education when students are the most susceptible to outside influence. We already talked about it a little bit with deepfakes, right? When you're young, you're impressionable. You think anything you see on social media has to be true. The same goes for education. You see, hey, it's okay to just look up any answer I need online through ChatGPT and write my essay for me. Obviously, there are use cases for that. But at some point, critical thinking and communication just becomes more important. When I was in college getting an electrical engineering degree and a comp sci physics and mathematics minor, I definitely, take it from me, I definitely wasn't the most fond of writing assignments in English or reading assignments in religion. But those skills that I got from comprehending what I'm reading and being able to translate what I just read into words and present it to people, those skills are important. Very important in the workforce. So I think in conclusion, you could take these different discussions a variety of different ways. I want to hear your thoughts because a lot of these are very controversial. I mean, I obviously didn't go into the politics very much. That's a whole nother avenue that could cause a ton of problems. But like the social impact, the romantic bots one, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, is this real? Or am I getting deep faked right now? I'm a little confused on this one. But I think this one in particular does come back to what we were just talking about with education, right? It's like people are getting intimate fulfillment from virtual or AI partners. It just doesn't seem right or healthy, in my opinion. And as you get more of that fulfillment from flirting with chatbots, I guess, it makes you less and less likely to desire and want an intimate partner. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. There's a lot of interesting issues here. Which one are you the most surprised about? Which one are you the most worried about? All right, that's it from me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.